Yep. Go ahead and hit record.
Okay, we're on. It's all yours, Eric.
All right. Welcome to the Mechanic Alliance podcast. I'm Eric. We've got Marv, Dave, and Tim Janello from Southern Illinois University with us. Tim is an educator there with the auto program. Tim, tell us who you are. Tell us how we can get a hold of you, where you're at, and what you ultimately do.
Well, located at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois. Our campus is actually out at the airport, which is kind of northwest of the town. We're part of SIU's school. Here, I guess we're called the School of Automotive now. They've been doing a little realignment. Probably this program's been around since the early 50s, and it's evolved over the years into this 4-year degree.
Wow. So
we have basically students coming through here that really aren't, there's some of them go out to basically be technicians.
Very nice.
We have a few of them that even in the area stayed here and are technicians and quite successful. But
that's great.
90% of our graduates go corporate wise. It may be aftermarket or it may be OEs, but they generally go into the corporate somewhere.
Okay, so working for like GM or Ford or Chrysler or any of the others out there doing, design or engineering kind of stuff?
Not really. We don't do too much engineering. We're kind of in the middle, so to speak. We have our students going out that are anything from technical support, technical writers, to working with engineers to fit and see if parts work, and serviceability engineers, mechanical engineering technicians. There's a lot of titles out there that basically, and it's really hard to do, is tell an engineer that this may not work. So they have to work with them to figure out what problems are and how to maybe service it a little better or create a little different design to get better servicing. Believe it or not, the industry is starting to pay attention to them. It's slow, but they are having a little success out there in that area.
That's good.
But we have students go everywhere. GM, you just named GM cars and that, but we have them go into Cummins, is a huge recruiter here. Navistar is a huge recruiter and supporter. So is Cummins as far as that goes. We've got them at Komatsu, Allison Transmission, Autocar. They're all over. Caterpillar. It's hard to go somewhere that probably some major company doesn't know about SIU.
That's
very nice.
My section here is several years ago when I started here, I was in the car side. I taught drivabilities and emissions. Got kind of interested in hybrids. So I kind of did a lot of research in hybrids for a while and presentations. And the boss called me one day and says, you'd be a real good fit for this new class we've got coming up. And he said, would you consider doing the diesel engine performance and emissions class? So here I am. So I'm playing with everything from, I've got a Passat back there, one of those, bad Passats, to Lone Stars from Navistar. Semis. The lab is loaded with them.
Yeah,
so
between me and all my friends, we call all those Passats the cheating V-dubs. Those are kind of sought after here.
Yeah. For a sophisticated thing as that is, yeah, okay. Somebody was doing something to make those things put out any kind, because it is kind of hard. We put it on a dyno. It's kind of hard to make it actually not be very clean. It is an accomplishment. But we've got 15 liters, 12 liter Cummins is on stands, Navistar's on stands. So our students are doing more research from probably what I would call the junior level up. Our classes are involved in more research. So they're using scopes, highly into scopes, so that they understand how smart sensors work and communications works and different areas like that. They're finding a lot more smart sensors on cars. So DVOMs are becoming not really useful anymore. It's
Yeah,
getting tough.
yeah, use those to show you got 12 volts with the battery.
No, that's about it. I mean, one of them back there a while ago was doing a rationale sensor on a Cummins engine, and it's got two signals coming out of it. One of them is a pulse signal, and they're amperage driven. So you look at them with a microamp clamp to see what's really going on. So it's changing and changing fast in a lot of areas. Not just diesel, but the cars are moving to it. The lab back there at the back end of it, where I've got all my trucks parked, is all electric vehicles.
Wow.
So they're doing the same thing with scopes. They're looking at the way the system is controlled.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
would you say, Tim, that because I've always loved the scope and it seems like it's gone away a little bit. Is it coming back with a vengeance?
It's going to have to come back. And yeah, I'm seeing it more and more that, well, you know, we've been scope heavy for years, and now some of our graduates are out there and got used to them. So now I'm seeing them as even GM has a Pico scope for NVH. It's got an NVH attachment that goes with it. So they're starting to use it for a lot of different things, not just what we would consider, you know, electrical diagnostics, but diagnostics in a lot of other areas.
Yeah.
NVH, you know, I taught that for a little bit. We even had scopes hooked up to chassis ears so that you could flip through the channels and see it on a screen rather than try to listen to it. So they've brought that around to part of this new NVH tool. So you're seeing it built into scan tools, but I see scan tools being a little slower than a regular scope is. But everybody is migrating that way to a certain extent, one way or another. So yeah, I see technicians more and more with scopes attached to their toolbox somewhere along the line, a drawer, something like that. I see a lot of even independent labs where they've just basically got a stall where they pull up a car and they've got a boom there with the lab scope hooked up and all their test leads and everything hanging down, so they can just reach over and hook them up to a car and start testing right there. So they've got some dedicated spots for these now.
Cool.
Yeah. So it sounds like more and more the industry is trending toward more high-end diagnostics, the scopes, being able to show what each individual sensor or, you know, collection of sensors reading multiple inputs. It sounds like that's where we're headed.
It is. I've got one student. He was very sharp at anything. I don't care if it was a computer or if it was diagnostics or whatever. He could tune. He could do everything he wanted to do. And he went to corporate route and says it wasn't for him. Left. He is working as an independent shop, and he does nothing but run a car in, do the diagnostics, pass it on to somebody else to change whatever parts he decides needs to be
I
changed.
love it. I love it.
We've been
That's
seeing
what
that a bit too.
That's what he does. He runs a scope and a scan tool, and he looks at what needs to be done and figures out the bug and pushes it on somewhere else. He's not even getting his hands dirty.
I love it.
Wow.
I love it. I love hearing that. I
And
really do.
you can't, I've tried to run him off. I mean, I've tried to get him some pretty nice jobs. Nope, not interested. Just loves it.
That's cool.
Hey,
And
that's what makes him happy. That's what's important.
Yeah, he's teaching it at junior college too.
Wow.
Good for
Awesome.
him.
So they've got him coming in teaching scopes and different things. So yeah, if you want to see what's going on, a DVOM is too slow.
Yeah.
today's sensors, because I had one a while ago just in class left here. He said, I've got my DVOM hooked up. And he said, I've got it on volts. And he said, I can't see anything. I said, well, you got it hooked to. He says, an injector. I says, you're talking microseconds versus,
Yeah.
I says, no. So he hooks it up to scope. And he says, oh, there it is. He was trying to just follow the normal, what I want to call service information on how to find a problem. So he was backing it up with his meter. And what do? You check to see if there's resistance between point A and point B in an injector circuit, and that's it.
Yeah.
You can't see amperage, you can't see voltage on it.
Well, I think they're getting lazy too, because we hear all the time, I can see it on my scan tool. I'm a Missourian when it comes to that. I'm the show me state. I want to see that it's actually what it is, because I've always called it buffered information. I mean, you're only going to see what that ECU wants you to see, and it might be right, and it may be not right.
They're finding that out. I tell them at the beginning of the classes, you're going to find out scan tool lies to you on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
It's
I love that
not
statement.
telling you the truth. And they figured out by now, this is the 9th week of class, they're starting to figure it out. They look at the scan tool and it's reporting a temperature or some kind of reading, a pressure, whatever. And they've got their resistance box and everything hooked up to it. And the voltage no longer matches. Now, a lot of the manufacturers do give you a voltage reading underneath the temperature reading or the pressure reading, so that you can see it's changing in the scan tool. But if you're just looking at the pressure reading, the scan tool's already figured out that that's impossible for that to be that, or change that fast or whatever. And they've already substituted their calculated value, and that's what the scan tool is showing. You don't get the real value that it's
calculated. Gee.
Yeah, it's a calculated value that they say, okay, this is what I know, and this is what I'm going to use, and this is what I've been using. So then it goes into this mode where it just sits there and it looks. It doesn't even give you a DTC. It might be, they've tried it. It might be days that they've cycled the key, come back in and started up, revved it up, went through temperature changes and everything else before it ever sets an actual DTC and says, hey, we don't like that sensor.
Wow.
And all it does, and sometimes you still only get a pending code. You don't even get an actual code yet.
Wow.
So they're getting to where if you really want to see a change, you've got to put a scope on it and watch what's really going on.
Will mode 6 go past that, or is it still calculated in mode 6?
Well, for the heavy diesels, it's hard to get to what I would call a mode 6 scenario.
Okay.
In your scan tool, basically, they give you a actual or commanded or desired or some kind of reading like that on some of them. And then underneath, they will give you a voltage reading or maybe an amperage reading. And you have to really watch that, because you could sit there and flip the resistance and watch those change while the pressure or the voltage reading or pressure or temperature reading or whatever never changes.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So if you're just, as I said, and the students do it all the time, they start looking at just the number and, well, this ain't working. This ain't working. Yeah, it is. Look right there underneath it. You are controlling it, but it has just stuck its thumb out or tongue out at you or whatever and said, nope, I'm not playing that game. I've already caught you.
Wow.
So they're finding out that the engineers, the way they're doing computers, is getting a lot more sophisticated in what they're doing. And they're just calculating everything out and just continue to run on a calculated basis. You may get derated, you may not get your full power or anything like that, but it'll continue to do a pretty good job of running. Really will.
Wow.
Wow.
So that's, I mean, and it, like I said, we are research. Okay.
Yeah.
So the students, what I have them do is literally go out and do that. They put a fault in. So they have to look at the system, understand how it works, They hook up a scope, they hook up their DVOM, their scan tool, everything to it, figure out how the system works. Then they have to figure out how they want to manipulate it to get a result out of it. So then they have to install this problem and then research it out to figure out, okay, it's doing this. If I didn't know any different, how would I find out what the problem is? So they have to come up and, and I said, okay, what's the service information tell you? And they go, not much. It would miss this problem big time. Why didn't they say do this, or why didn't they say do that? So I hear that all the time. That's the way when you get one of those big fancy jobs of technical writing, you can change that, right? I said, it ain't going to happen. The OEs are going to tell you what to put in there.
Yeah, they are.
And they don't let you put in a lot of stuff that you think you're going to get to put in there. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
You've got lawyers involved. You've got legal departments got their fingers on everything. So I said, get used to it. They find out. They find out the hard way sometimes, but they find out.
Yeah. So, that's a nice segue into the next section. You do a lot of research. Where do you see the industry going in the next 5-10 years or so? What are we looking at on the horizon?
Well, the big push right now is EV, right? Batteries.
Yeah.
We've got graduates right now working at Cummins, engine manufacturer, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're working on electric of every kind, trucks, forklifts, all kinds of equipment, electric powered. So they're getting into the electric side of this as well as anybody else is getting into it. So it's going to go that way. Diesels, they're not going to go away because they still haven't come up with something that's going to be able to take a truck and run across country in it.
Yeah.
Keep it going. Now you could probably run for so long on a battery and stop and charge it, and just like a car or anything else. Now pedal tractors like in town, they're getting to be popular for emissions, but also fuel costs. Right now fuel's going way up. So all those costs are getting better for electric to come in. So do I see electric coming around? Yes. Do I see diesels going away? No. Gasoline, it's not going away anytime soon either, but it's going to be slowly pushed out to a certain extent. I don't think it's going to happen in the 5-year time span, but in the 10 years, if somebody comes up with a technology that's going to allow more battery capacity or a way for you to charge while you're going down the road or something like that, then yes, it's going to go electric. But the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to cause more diagnostics. So
yeah,
that's going to be the bottom line. Your diagnostics is going to go through the roof to a certain extent, but right now the manufacturers are extremely scared to turn technicians loose with any kind of real diagnostics on hybrids or electric vehicles because of shock.
We've been seeing that a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, see, I'm a different animal, I guess. I came out of, at one time, I was a strip mine electrician. So I was playing with 23,000 volts. So 300 volts is nothing for me. But for somebody that is used to 12 volts, it's a big change. I see it in our students. I see it in a lot of people. It's like, whoa, yeah, it's dangerous if you get in there, but it can be tested just like anything else can be tested. You just have to understand the system and the do's and the don'ts. So as our classes are coming up, we're having more and more hybrid and more electric cars. And then the other side of it, we've got another class coming up that's going to be your ADAS systems. All your advanced driving systems is coming in more and more and more.
Yeah,
and more.
a lot.
Yep.
So Tim, when you look at technicians out there working in let's say an independent shop, what would your advice be to that technician to improve his value, so to speak, in the industry moving forward?
First thing, well, as any technician, they're going to end up changing a part, right? Hopefully down the line somewhere, but it's the diagnostic side of it. It's getting educated in every shape, form. You're going to have a sensor tied to everything, and you've got them right now that are even looking at the driver. So when the driver's running down the road, he's being monitored.
Yeah.
Had a student a couple of years ago brought one of those GM Super Cruise Cadillacs down here. And if he put his hand up in front of his eyes, it was squawking at him because it was looking at him the whole time, make sure he didn't close his eyes. So it was looking for eye contact. Even though he wasn't driving, it was going down the road on its own, and he had it programmed in, everything else, but it expected him to stay awake and be alert. So, we used to have an air conditioner looking at you, like to see if you're getting hot or cold, change the temperature. Now they're looking to see if you're even blinking too much.
Yeah.
So it's
Wow.
it's going out to everything. And then the other thing that I see happening more and more is the reporting back to the OEs what's going on in a car while it's running down the road. So they're looking at that too as advanced diagnostic systems. And there's already in trucks right now.
Wow.
These trucks are interconnected. They get data sent all the way back to the OE. And if they're running down the road and they start seeing a problem with the engine, the fleet manager's getting an email that says, you better get that truck off the road. Something's going to happen. So it's into advanced diagnostics too.
Wow.
That's
Very
impressive.
cool.
So I guess one final thought that I've got is, what kind of certifications do you guys offer? I mean, we're all familiar with the ASE certs and those things, and obviously you're offering a 4-year degree.
Mhm.
What kind of certifications are guys typically leaving your university with?
Well, the students leave with the 4-year degree. They have options to get ASEs like everybody else does. They can go through a class, then go take their ASEs to get that in their portfolio also. Now, through different classes, and particularly mine, I'm tied in with the OEs. They can go do Cummins, so they can take Cummins training just like they were working for Cummins. They can go take Navistar training like they were working for Navistar. And we do Bendix Meritor training down the line. The other OEs, GM, Chrysler, Ford, really haven't come up with a way for us to tie in to do those types of training. But not sounding really, I guess, too awful far off the project here, but the training really between Cummins and Navistar and whatever, it's pretty applicable across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has maybe their own way of doing a few things, but the foundation is still the same. So once they get the training, they come in here and get their degree and they get trained. The training actually goes into their portfolio, and the manufacturers look at that in the interview process. So they look at it as a advantage for that student to have that knowledge, but it's not a sold thing for them. They're more looking at the classes they took and how they accomplished in these classes.
Right.
They look at things like, did they do stuff outside of class too? What kind of training do they have outside of class, like practical, like have they been at a dealership somewhere or an independent garage? They even look at what we call independent study projects. In other words, I'll have a student that wants to take one of these engines on a stand and make it run. So he hooks up all the wiring, the computer, the fuel system, cooling system, everything. and makes it where you can turn a key and it starts up and it sits around a stand and runs like it was in the truck.
Fantastic.
So that goes into their portfolio as something that the manufacturers look at when they come in. The certificates, as I said, are really good, and it helps them. But there's a lot of other things that I guess trying to say is we don't really provide a certificate for. They have to put it in their
Agree.
portfolio and prove it when they go.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, Eric, looks like we got about a minute and a half left.
Well, that pretty well wraps up everything that we've got, Tim. I mean, this has been a fantastic opportunity. We genuinely appreciate having you on with us. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Probably the easiest way is through my email. It's just tjanello@siu.edu. So it's tjanello@siu.edu. I pretty well checking my email constantly because of students. So
Yeah.
that's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Well, that's
sure
fantastic,
appreciate
Tim.
you. We sure appreciate
all right.
you.
We do all kinds of training too. I didn't tell you guys that, but they've even doing it, well, until the COVID hit, we were doing GSA training. They were flying people in from all over the country and bringing them in here to do training for government services. So
Awesome.
we do training not just for the students, but we even go out and do presentations for, I don't know, last one I did was for Standard Motor Products. Been a while ago. Went to Dallas and did it. So we do some training for it by request, so to speak, I guess.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We'll end it here before it kicks us off on our time limit. But thanks for talking with us, Tim. We really appreciate it.
No
Thanks for your
problem.
time.
No problem.